Hello, guys. Welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. Hope you're all good, guys. Get involved in the comments section. Hit that like button for us, as usual. I've got Ray with me. Ray, you all good?
I'm smashing, mate. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I mean, I was busy with work last week, so you held the fort here. So it feels like it's been a little while since.
Yeah,
I've
but it only felt like 5 minutes. That's me doing the solo videos while you're busy earning the pennies. But yeah, we've got a lot to go through tonight, haven't we? We've got the McKinson Ortiz card to chat about. We've also got the DAZN card at the weekend. Dalton Smith, big performance from him. But I think to start off, we'll just go through chatting about the Vergil Ortiz win against Michael McKinson. Like I said, I already did a preview video on this one, and it kind of went the way I thought it would go. The first round, a lot of people had McKinson winning that first round, Josh, and I'll be honest with you, I thought it was an Ortiz round. I thought Ortiz sat on his chest, took centre of the ring. McKinson was tricky, and I knew it'd be tricky. That's his style. Although I did think that physically, in the first couple of rounds, McKinson was almost trying to wrestle with Ortiz. It almost felt like he was trying to impose his physical strength on Ortiz, just trying to show him who's boss, show him that, look, I'm not here to be messed with. I'm not here to blow away. But I thought Ortiz did enough to win that round. I was impressed with his accuracy. I did see in the preview that he's not wasteful with his shots. Usually you see power punchers. For example, Bekmatia Mazulkuliev, also known as Bek the Bully, he was on the card earlier on against Janamin, and he was loading up with his power shots, missing that sometimes. Vergil Ortiz doesn't really load up with his power shots. Every shot's intentful and spiteful, but it's more natural rather than loading up with shots. And he was finding McKinson. I thought in the second round, again, it was more similar to the first. And then what you start to see from round 3 and round 4, McKinson started to really, really slow down. He started to feel the pace. The shots from Ortiz was starting to hurt him. Interestingly enough, somebody who we really rate on this channel, our good mate Imran Mia, he had McKinson winning round 6 and round 7. For me, McKinson had completely slowed down at that point. He almost became a statue. He was almost hit at will by Ortiz, and there were hurtful shots. McKinson showed a good chin, but what he also showed me was that when his feet are still, because he doesn't have any power, he can't keep his opponent off him. And Ortiz was just walking through everything, hunting him down, cutting off the ring, and McKinson wasn't able to use his feet to evade that. So it was quite one-sided, pretty much how we said it would go. But don't get me wrong, McKinson's stock's probably risen from this. It wasn't an absolute battering. It was a one-sided performance, but it wasn't as if he was it wasn't a complete battering. I don't know what you thought about the second knockdown, Josh, at the start of the round, because it was like Ortiz hadn't even thrown a punch.
Yeah, no, it was a bit peculiar. I mean, firstly, we've got active people in the comments already. Boxing Story, and great to have you on. Michael C, Joel Phillip, usual crowd. Great to have you all here.
Great to have you on.
So hit that like button if you haven't, guys. Obviously, it helps us attract other people. And I agree. It was a bit like Ortiz hadn't really thrown a punch, but I just think it got to the point where McKinson just looked burnt out for me. A spent force is always harsh, and I'm torn because, I mean, obviously I didn't do the preview, but I watched your preview, and I totally agreed with everything you said. So it wouldn't have even been an opportunity for me to extend my lead on predictions, to be fair, which is a shame.
You have to rub that in, didn't you?
So yeah, I agreed with everything you said, and I just think, people are talking about McKinson going back to possibly domestic fights. And I think what we did see is possibly that he's too good for that. But Vergil Ortiz, I think, in 3 or 4 years' time, we're going to be talking about a superstar. And I just think it's like, similar, as much as it pains me to say it, Ricky Hatton was a world-class fighter. However, he was not in that pound for pound, the Pacquiaos, the Mayweathers of his generation. And I just think that's McKinson just ran into someone who's seriously special on Saturday night. And I really think it was a case of that. Be interesting to see what people in the comment section, and you, Ray, where does McKinson go from here? What do you think happens? Just before I move on to you, mate, we've got a new gentleman in the comment section, Cody Banks. Cheers for joining us, mate. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Lomachenko will be coming back for a tune-up fight, and then he'll be fighting Devin Haney. We can get onto that. Real GST, great to have you back as well, mate.
How you doing, Greg?
So what do you think's next for McKinson, Ray?
I'd like to see him in. I'd like to see him in with Marco. I think that would be a good fight. Marco again brings the pressure. He's got a little bit of power himself, but it's a fight that McKinson can get up for. I know there's a lot of talk about Conor Benn, Conor Benn, but I'm being realistic. I don't think Conor Benn will later go back down to domestic level. I think Conor Benn's looking upwards, and you'll probably see McKinson as a step downwards. That would probably be the best fight in them all. But I'm thinking realistically, a fight with Marco. Forget the promotional issue. I think that fight would make a lot of sense. McKinson, like I said, he didn't, although it was one-sided, he didn't disgrace himself in that fight, and he's clearly got a lot of skill. As I was saying in my breakdown of it, there were some points, particularly early on, round 1, round 2, he was getting out of range pretty well, but he was throwing single shots. And when you don't have a lot of power, throwing single shots is never a good idea. You should be doubling up, tripling up, particularly on the jab, and varying the shots in terms of head and body, get some scoring shots, because you're not going to be landing hard shots because he wasn't planting his feet. So that was, for me, what McKinson didn't do enough. That was one of the things he didn't do enough. But I think there's some good options down at 147, and particularly if he stays in the States. There's the likes of like Blair Cobbs. He picked up a good win against Maurice Hooker, who's a good opponent. I know Hooker had loads of issues going into that fight, but yeah, there's some good fights there for him. How about yourself, Josh? Where do you see him going?
I think it's tough. I think, to be honest with you, how he responded to Vergil Ortiz's power, I think the result with Conor Benn would probably be the same. I think McKinson, he's very talented, he's very slick, but Davey has mentioned it here, on about the lack of stoppages that McKinson's got. I think he's only got 2 stoppages overall, and he's on his full slate at 22 and now 22-1. So I think Conor Benn would do the same, because Conor Benn is aggressive. I agree again with this comment. Levels to the game, he can come back because he has a skill set that can be progressed, and it can be. But I do think I just think he's going to be the nearly man, if that makes sense. He's going to be a tough fight for anybody and cause anybody problems. But I just don't think we're going to see him win that big one, so to speak.
But just on a quick point, I mean, as I was saying in my preview, Paulie Malignaggi won a world title. At
147 now, the titles are locked up between Spence and Crawford. Yeah. Then he's possibly faced, well, for me, it's Boots Ennis or Vergil Ortiz. For the next, they're going to be the future of the welterweight division. I think Conor Benn possibly could gate crash the party, but we need to see him in a proper acid test before we can really say that for sure.
Yeah, I don't think Ben beats any of those guys, but
I just think he could. For me, Conor Benn, he could end up winning if the titles become fragmented. If he gets a decent fight for a vacant title, I think he's quite capable of winning a world title. For me, I just don't think Michael McKinson. I just don't think he's going to have it. The 147 division is too stacked, and he just doesn't. I just don't think he's going to have the power to do it. I love the Marku fight for him, and again, promotional issues aside, that's a fight I'd love to see. Even a Chris Congo rematch, to be totally honest, for me.
Yeah, I think he's kind of past that now. But I was just about to make a comparison. Go on, sorry.
I was just saying, Congo looked good last time out. He's on
Yeah, I don't know what a rematch does for him when he beat him quite clearly last time. The comparison I was going to make with Paulie was that although Paulie didn't have that power, Paulie had a different range of attacking skills. For example, his combination punching, his output was a lot better than Mickinson's, and I think that's a key for Mickinson because he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that in his arsenal. I can't see him going much above than what he can do. But there's some good fights for him. He's not like, if he's looked after properly, there's definitely some good fights there for him.
Yeah. Definitely. Real GST will be on to Dalton Smith in a little bit. Don't you worry about it. Just stick with us. We will get there. So, I mean, I think we've covered McKinson now, and I just want to talk a little bit about Michael Conlan now. Obviously, it was his comeback return of the Mick, which I did quite like the that sort of slogan for the card. It was a decent card as well. You also had Tyrone McKenna and Chris Jenkins as chief support, which I didn't mind. But as for Michael Conlan, so I've just noticed another Michael. Cheers for that, Michael. It just fully made me lose my thought then. I saw that pop up and it just totally made me lose my trail of thought there, mate. I hope your child's hydrated and showing you her Pokemon cards now, mate. We're just moving on to Michael Conlan, and he was back to winning ways this weekend. And it was a bit bizarre. 10 rounds. There were some knockdowns in it. Conlan was caught himself in the 10th, and to be honest, he took it, but it was definitely a shaky moment for him. But I don't want to talk too much about that fight, Ray. However, and I want you guys in the comment section, does this put Conlan, Mariaja, decent enough record,
gatekeeper, isn't he?
Pardon?
Gatekeeper.
Definite gatekeeper, yeah. But for Conlan now, he didn't disgrace himself against Wood at all. We talked about that as a potential fight of the year, definitely so far. Probably will still be in the talking come the end of the year. Does this put Michael Conlan back in that hunt? Because the 126 division is just on fire, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the most stacked division. We talked about the welterweight division. Lightweight division is taking care of itself. We'll talk about that in a little minute. You've got light heavyweight division, and then you've got the featherweight division, which are, in my opinion, really on fire. I think Conlan's always going to be in the mix. He's always going to be in the mix. One, because of his name, his star value. He's a name not just over on our shows, but over in the States. But he does have ability. He does have real boxing ability. He does have a great skill set. He's a little bit. We were talking about Mickinson earlier, and we're talking about somebody who, in my opinion, can't punch. But in Mickinson, I think, in Conlan, I think his record is quite deceiving. I think he's a little bit like Josh Warrington. I think he hits harder than what his record suggests. The punch that he took down Lee Wood, I mean, Lee Wood's got a decent chin on him, and Lee Wood look hurt. Had that been earlier on in the round, I'm not too sure whether we'll be talking about Lee Wood as a champion. I think Conlan, who was already on track for winning that fight, would have won that fight by stoppage. But getting back to the point though about Conlan, I definitely think they don't need to nurse him back, provided he's healthy. They can put him straight back in that mix because there's a massive fight for him. Whether you look at the Kiko Martinez fight, whether you look at putting him in with Warrington, whether you want to tempt Gary Russell, there's big fights with him. Mark Maxayao, big, like I said, massive fights, and he's a big draw. He's a talent as well.
Yeah, no, I'd agree, and I think I agree with Davey here. I think there's a world title for him for sure at some point. And you've just mentioned, for me, the next fight should be Kiko Martinez. He's been a world champion recently, shocked everybody, obviously, with the Kid Galahad win. He had a really interesting fight with Josh Warrington, to be fair, which obviously came out on the wrong side of. But I really think that's the perfect fight for Michael Conlan. It's name value, former world champion. I want to say legend, but, legend's possibly strong. But, he's definitely a very, very well-respected fighter, isn't he?
Well respected, we'll go for.
Yeah, we'll go. All right, Ray. Yeah, keep going. You're a disgrace, mate. But no, I definitely, that's the fight I want to see for him. I think it would be a really good bridge and help his world rankings as well. Let's be fair, to try
absolutely. And the other thing as well, Martinez is he'll bring it. He'll not stop throwing punches. He's got a head as hard as nails, and then we'll see again how well Conlan's recovered from that knockout loss. He'll ask more questions of Conlan than what Mariaga did. Mariaga was just that steady gatekeeper. Everybody who's done something at world level has been through Mariaga or an equivalent of Mariaga. Martinez is like a next step up from that. And I'm sure Conlan will pass that test with flying colours, mate.
No, definitely. Michael's back in the chat. I think he was unlucky against Wood. Would like to see that fight. Yeah, class Wood in parts and inexperience played a factor. We've spoken about this, and there were points in that fight. You know, Conlon was ahead on the scorecards, boxing beautifully, and considering it was in Nottingham and it was a bit of a, lively crowd to say the least, it obviously in Lee Wood's favour. I thought Michael Conlan, he looked like a big game player, didn't he? You know, he didn't let the occasion get to him. He was fully prepared for it and fully on the ball with it. So I'd love to see that rematch. I mean, talking in the featherweights, it looks like obviously Lee Wood, I don't know whether to applaud him or think he needs his head looking at, because he's saying he wants to fight Lara over the weekend. That sort of news broke, which would be great. Obviously, there's talk of the Santa Cruz fight. I think Matchroom are talking like September the 24th will be when we next see Lee Wood in the ring. So hopefully, Eddie Hearn says this week we'll get announcements over their schedule. So definitely keep a lookout for that, and I'm sure we'll be doing some sort of reaction video to that schedule.
Yeah,
the last time there was a few curveballs in there, wasn't there, with the likes of Warrington, Martinez. Ooh. See, now this is a tough comment here from Michael, because that 126 division, Ray Vargas has just crashed the party. And so I was touting Magsayo as a not future of the division, but definitely a solid world champion who was, going to reign for a little while. And obviously Ray Vargas has crashed it. Magsayo can come back. You can't count Warrington out, to be fair to him. And obviously Lee Woods looks like, with the power that he's got, he's going to
Navarrete still leads it for me. And that's the thing. But you don't know. Conlan could be one of those fighters where the loss could be something that he learns from, and he can make adjustments to his style to make sure that he employs different tactics towards the championship rounds and going down the stretch, because that's where he got caught short. He tried to exchange on the ropes and he got caught. I don't think he'll ever make that mistake again. The way he was outboxing Lee Wood gives me the confidence that he could do something against those guys. Like I'm not saying he's going to beat Navarrete, but I think he has a chance with the other guys in that mix. You've got to remember, styles make fights. I think, for example, he'd be too quick for Mark Magsayo. I think he's a good fighter. Don't get me wrong; he's a strong fighter, but I think his speed and elusiveness may just get him a points decision. So, Josh Warrington for me, I know you won the Kid Gallagher for that fight. I had him winning that fight, but at some point in that fight, he did struggle with Kid Galahad's style. So I think he may struggle with Conlan, particularly if Conlan's really active and really sharp on his feet. So he has got the tools there to beat people. You never know if he gets the right fights between now and he gets some good people like a Martinez, maybe a Gary Russell. The confidence he gets from beating those names not only adds to his resume, but adds to his experience in the ring.
Now, there we go. Yeah, Teofimo Lopez is back this weekend. We have already done our preview for that. So you'll catch that one on the channel, on the playlist somewhere. Here we go.
Yeah, Johnny Nelson came back and he had a, you're right. He did have the record defenses of a cruiserweight title. The problem with cruiserweight is since was definitely in the last 15 years. Well, in that period that Nelson was there, the caliber of opponents wasn't as it kind of was now with the emergency.
Hang on, Ray. Johnny Nelson said he'd beat Usyk easily.
I'm sure he would, but then I'm pretty sure he would wake up afterwards and then roll out of bed, because I can't see him beating Usyk in a million years in the mother of Sundays.
That was one of those headlines I read, and then I watched the interview, and I thought, right, Sky need to have a serious think about drugs testing him, because he made it sound like Usyk is just nothing. And I thought, I get every fighter is going to back themselves. Of course they are. And every fighter thinks their era was the tough era. And I appreciate all of that. And yeah, Michael, this was the thing that did me. And I'm glad you said it. When he said he danced around him and outbox him, I thought, all right, maybe have a word with Anthony Joshua and see how easy it is to outbox Alexander Usyk.
Yeah. I think some of these pundits like a bit of controversy for themselves. Yeah,
again, great point from Joel here, that you do learn as much from a defeat, don't you? I think that goes across all sports, in all fairness.
Yeah. And what I say to that is, look how Canelo came on after he's lost against Floyd Mayweather. If Conlan does the same, picks the right opponents, you could be talking about a really great fighter here.
And this is actually a great point. While we're talking about Usyk, he's looking in shape and he's looking a bit meaty, isn't he? I'm really looking forward to seeing what weight he comes in at, because he looks huge, to be fair.
Is he? Because Davey is right. He did drop a message and drop that video in a group chat. And Mickey C also sent me a video of Usyk training, allegedly looking bigger. I don't think he looks that much bigger.
No, it was the midriff for me. The shoulders and arms look a little bit bigger, but he looks a lot more solid. Around the ab area for me, that was where I thought he looked, and the tops of his thighs. I thought he's starting to look like a heavyweight. Whereas for me before, he has at heavyweight so far, he has looked like a cruiserweight coming up, whereas he looked like a solid heavyweight.
Right. I mean, for me, it'll make no iota of a difference. Because
Josh was going to knock him out. You're right.
Anthony won't get near him. I mean, if Joshua does knock him out, I thought he would knock him out in the first fight. For me, the trick's going to be how Joshua handles that fight psychologically, and whether or not he sorted out his stamina issues. Usyk adding on more muscle, I believe he'll add it on properly, so it wouldn't affect his stamina. But the type of fighter that Usyk is, I don't think he's not going to be standing in front of Joshua pushing him back. He's just going to outbox Anthony Joshua. And if Joshua's not careful, if he just runs at Usyk, he might end up getting stopped. But I'm not too sure how much bigger he is. I think it's because, just as a quick note, he did lose a lot of weight when he was taken off the front line, because obviously he was. So I don't know where people are looking at him thinking, he looked a bit thinner than usual, and now he's obviously got his mass back. People are thinking, he's looking massive. I personally think he's got his mass back, because he did lose a lot of weight out on the front line, but could be wrong.
We'll see. We will see, won't we? And we haven't got too long to wait now. This is a comment I can get on board with. I've not changed. I mean, possibly ridiculous. And Davey, I might be eating my words, as clearly you might as well. But I have not changed my position on this since before the first fight. If Joshua uses his tributes, can find that aggressive side to himself, and uses he's just a bigger man. If he uses his dimensions, I just don't see how he doesn't beat Alexander Usyk. As good as Usyk is, Chisora showed he didn't like being roughed up. Yeah. So if AJ can channel that, earlier AJ from in his career, and he was bowling everyone over. And I know it's a different prospect doing that against Charles Martin and Dominic Brazil, obviously to Usyk, but he's more experienced. His own skills have developed. His boxing ability has developed. His boxing ability is just not that of Alexander Usyk.
Yeah.
But if he can do that, I only see one winner. I'm with you, mate. I believe Joshua wins this rematch. However, if he doesn't, I'm not going to be on this channel for a while, because Ray will never let me forget it, because I have gobbed off about it more than once.
Yeah, that's true. I won't let you forget it. I just wonder how you recover psychologically, but we'll have to see. The fight's not far.
We will see, but I like the change of coach. I thought it was bizarre, in terms of obviously Garcia coming in. But the clips that you've seen around social media, various platforms that there are nowadays, I quite like what they're doing. He is an aggressive coach. So I'm just excited for that fight. And, I think what we'll do, Davey, is if by some strange thing Joshua loses, we'll kick Ray off, you come on, and we'll just pretend nothing ever happened, and we'll just move on to the next one.
I'll see you on the front line when I'm in Ukraine.
There we go, mate. Well, I've just said it. We'll kick Ray out, you come in, and we'll just pretend nothing's ever happened. So there we go. Should we move on to the DAZN card, Ray? Because I didn't get to do the preview for this, and there was a few fighters on this card that I'm a fan of. So we'll start with Hopi Price. Obviously, he picked up a good points win. Ray, do you just want to give us a quick 30-second breakdown on this?
Yeah, Hopi Price, another good performance. Looked solid, looked sharp. Nice to get the ring rust off. He's a class act, Hopi Price, and he's developing and he's improving. When he first turned over, I was a bit, I'm not too sure whether he can cope with the physicality. I'm not too sure if he had any power about him, but he's got ring IQ. He's got ring IQ. He knows when to be in range, when to be in the pocket. He varies his punches. He's a smart fighter. I like him.
No, I agreed as well with what you said on the preview. When he started, obviously a lot was made of his background, and we thought we've got a talent, but he did look like a boy in a man's world.
Yeah.
And now he's getting to sit down on his shots a little bit more, isn't he? He's just the man strength's coming in for me. And although this was a points win, I think what it did show with the performance is that he's definitely ready to move on now, isn't he? He's ready for that next step, whether it's starts looking at titles or what we will see. But Eddie Hearn has said he wants to move him on now. And I'm excited about Hopi Price. I'm a fan of his. And I've said it on here before. I'm a big fan of watching, careers from start to finish. And I think when we get to the end of Hopi Price's career, I think we could be talking about, multi-time world champion, possible multi-weight as well.
Well, there's talent in around in his divisions. That's the thing. But at this stage, you can definitely see he's got enough about him to trouble people when he eventually gets there. Again, about these kids, it's about getting them the right fights at the right time. If he does that and he keeps developing like he is, he keeps listening in the gym and keeps improving like he is, then there's no reason why not. He's definitely got the frame to go through the weight physically.
Yeah. I think that's the key as well. And I love the job Dave Caldwell's doing with him. I think, he's got a few fighters in his stable that he's doing quite an underrated job with, and it's going a little bit under the radar.
Definitely, Josh. I'm glad you said that because I like Dave Caldwell. You gave us 30 seconds. If you give us a minute, I would have given 30 seconds of Dave Caldwell because I really like Dave Caldwell as not just a boxing coach, but a boxing manager. He really knows his boxing, and his fighters seem to improve. I think he got a bit of a stick with the whole Anthony Fowler thing, but I think he did what he could with Fowler. But if you look at what he's done with like the likes of Chisora, what he's doing with Hopi Price,
Jordan Gill.
Sorry?
Jordan Gill, Tony Bellew.
John Gill, Tony Bellew, even what he did with Curtis Woodhouse going back all those years, he's really insightful, and I'm not surprised to see his fighters progressing so well.
No, definitely. Davey's with us like in Hopi Price. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's next. I hope he can get out certainly at least once more, but with the right fights, maybe twice more this year. We'll move up. Campbell Hatton. Now, I'm stuck. I'm a massive Ricky Hatton fan. One of the reasons I got into boxing. So I am sort of blinded by the family name a little bit. I have to admit it, sadly. He got a point when he's moved to 8-0. Ray, have we seen anything we didn't already know?
No. No.
That's heartbreaking, to be fair. But
you want to understand, sir? You asking the wrong person.
Do you know what, mate? I asked you because I didn't want to say it. I actually agree with you. Yeah, I'm starting to think I've gone from thinking, Campbell Hatton fought on all the big stages, and I thought this is the wrong way. We've talked about that it was the wrong way to go. Too much too soon. He went and had his first stoppage win in Spain, got a bit of a bizarre second stoppage win. Then when he fought on the Lawrence Okoli card back in February, it looked like a step backwards. And I don't want to say a step backwards, obviously winning over Dufek on the weekend, but I don't think it was a step forward, was it?
No, I
Davey
mean,
agrees as well.
yeah, he did, like, coming into the ring. He looked really physically strong. But in the ring, it didn't translate, and it was going back to the early point I was going to make about Usyk, getting bigger, and muscles don't win fights. Muscles don't win fights. Mickey C's on one tonight, isn't he?
He is. It's twice he's done that now. I wasn't even listening to what you just said. I saw that comment, but
Yeah, Johnny Nelson.
he danced around Campbell Hatton.
Yeah, I mean, Campbell Hatton, he started quick. He started like a house on fire, and I thought, wow, we're starting to see some big improvements. He wasn't just throwing the left hook wildly; he was actually setting up the left hook to the body. He was actually setting it up. There was a lot of thought. He was working his way onto the inside, throwing feet to the head, and then giving eyes to the body, and throwing the left hook to the body, pretty much like his dad did back in the day. Lovely body shot selection. He looked really good. His opponent didn't know what hit him. We saw that in the first round. Second round, pretty much more the same. But by the third round, it had all gone. It was almost like it was like a 2-round, like a 3-round amateur fight. And that's the thing for me that's troubled Hatton since his debut. He just seems to, he just seems to gas out. And I'm really disappointed. I thought they would have addressed that by now. The first couple of times I saw it, I thought, this is just nerves. This is just nervous energy. He's desperate to get his opponent out and look good on a big show, but it's staying with him. And that's why I've always maintained, and I've always said this, he really needs to build his career in the small hall shows, because this is doing him no favours, because every flaw is just being magnified and being exposed, and people like us are kind of tearing into him a bit. But he should have got his opponent out of there, Josh, and he didn't look like, the longer the fight got on, the more stationary he got, the more he got hit. And if this had been a 12-rounder, he would have lost.
No, I agree. I do agree reluctantly. I mean, as much as I agree the small hall route would, for his style, and forget his second name, he's suited to that. But because of his second name, he's never going to get to go on the small halls, is he? Because let's be fair for us all, if a promoter starts dropping a few zeros on a check, you're going to be taking it. It's just the way it is.
That's fair enough, Josh. And you're probably right. I just think in terms of ability wise, he's so limited. It's boxing fans aren't daft, and they're going to start calling it out sooner rather than later.
I agree.
He's becoming like a gimmick. He's becoming like a gimmick, and when you're struggling to get people like Dusek out of there, or struggling to win emphatically, he's won every round on the scorecards, but they weren't convincing. And the energy he showed in the first 2 rounds was completely gone in round 4, 5, and 6. And you wonder if that had went to a 10-rounder. Dusek was starting to get some success and not hurting him with like heavy, hurtful shots, but like he was starting to catch him like way too often. That shouldn't be happening at this stage of a prospect's career.
Well, do you think it's nervous energy? Because, one thing you've got to say about his dad, his uncle, obviously, and they're involved with his training as well. So I would imagine a lot of the methods.
His uncle's training him, innit?
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, his dad's his manager. So I'd imagine a lot of those methods are going to be used on Campbell. And they both had great 12-round engines, not a problem. So do you think it's a nervous energy? Because Campbell Hatton is a young lad. He's on social media. He's getting slagged off a lot like now. And I've maintained that, I think, from about his 3rd fight where it's like, right, this isn't going to be someone who hits the ground running. I've personally thought I wouldn't mind seeing him having 20 fights against opponents like this because, as Davey said here, very little amateur experience. Technically, he's learning on the job, as the the old phrase goes. I think we need to stop calling him out. And I'm not just saying that as a massive fan of his dad, but I think we need to stop calling him out. Let's support him. And, let's see if he can develop. And if he gets to between 15 and 20 and 0, and I know people say, padded record, but it works in America. A lot of American fighters come through and get to 20 fights before, Deontay Wilder, for example, he didn't really fight anybody. And I think it was, without double checking, it was like his 26th fight. And I've got no issues for me because Campbell Hatton's going to be a ticket seller anywhere in the north. The Manchester people, they're going to come out, they're going to back him up, they're going to support him. For me, I think we just need to calm down. He's still winning. And while I agree, he's not winning convincingly, he is still winning. And, for me, the camp is almost more important than the fight for him at the minute, if that makes sense. Because, he's probably sparring people better than who he's fighting. And, he's going to be learning. His uncle was, an experienced pro European champion, world title challenger. His dad, 258 management and Matchroom Boxing. He's got all the tools, hasn't he, to really kick on. I just think we need, as boxing fans, we just need to be patient with him. We've been spoilt the last few years with prospects coming through, really kicking on. And, I just think Campbell Hatton's not going to be that who just he's ready for it immediately. I mean, Davies here.
Why don't they not just send him off to America then?
I wouldn't mind.
That would bring him on heaps and bounds. And I think the difference with the Americans, I was just going to interject there, is they've got far more pros than us, and their gatekeepers are a lot better than our title contenders. And I'm talking about British title contenders, European title contenders. The Americans have got a lot of talent over there, and some of their gatekeepers are only such because they don't have the commercial and financial backing that the likes of Campbell Hatton can afford to be full-time early on. So if I were him, I would just pack up and go to America, spend a couple of years out there sparring the best, moving around the gyms, and maybe fighting about 4 or 5-ish gatekeepers in that time, and just learning, and probably forgetting about staying undefeated and just learning, and then come back over here and then kick on.
So you'd swap trainers as well, I'm assuming.
No, but you can take. I mean, there's no reason why his uncle can't go with him. You just go around the gyms and you go and learn. I mean, Liam Smith used to do it.
Yeah,
Liam Smith did it. Liam Smith went every summer. He would go. Boati was doing that at one point before he fully committed to going there. He doesn't need to leave his uncle. He can go with his uncle. Scott Quigg did it a few times. He would go to Freddie Roach's gym.
Freddie Roach, yeah.
And he took Gallagher. So it's about learning. I just think it would do the world of good to change his environment completely, but learn against some really different styles. I think that would bring him on leaps and bounds, because at the minute, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. I get why you would need to be patient with him. People are saying it in the chat. He hasn't had the amateur experience. I get all that. But in my opinion, people like John T. Wilder, yeah, he had the same, but he had raw power. Campbell doesn't even have that.
It's harsh, but now I hear you. I am running out of sort of things to defend Campbell with, but patience. I'd like the American route for him. I also think if he was fighting over in America as well, maybe, Matchroom, they're clearly moving away from the British market, as we've sort of said previously, and becoming more of a global powerhouse. I wouldn't mind seeing him on, he's fought in Spain already, but Spain again, a Matchroom Italy show, they're going into Australia, just chuck him in, get him some different experience, and he just learns. So no, I'd be down for that, to be fair. We'll move this one on because I'm thoroughly depressed now, mate. Jordan Thompson stepped up against Dukar. Obviously, we know Dukar from fights with, Chris Billam-Smith and co. And he won it by unanimous decision. But I thought Thompson had this too easy at times. And then it was like the concentration sort of died off. And then obviously when he got clipped, he looked vulnerable, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And Dukar was the person that Jordan Thompson fought. It was Dufek that Campbell Hatton fought. So apologies, I got their names muddled up, but it sounded similar in my defense. But Jordan Thompson was another one. I thought he was coarse in that fight. And it was sheer complacency towards the end. He got caught, but in my opinion, he should have got stopped. The problem was it was bang on right at the end of the round. and the referee gave him the standing 8 count, got the 9. He had just got up, and I think the referees probably thought, well, he's just a couple of, the bell had sounded, so as long if he stands up, I just guide him to his corner. But in my opinion, had there been another round or two, he would have lost that fight. But I think that's more down to complacency. I hadn't seen anything through the course of that fight to say I'm not, I'm a bit skeptical of Jordan. What I saw from Jordan was he boxed really, really well. He kept it long at times. He's got good technique, Jordan. He comes from a kickboxing background, but he's got really, really good technique. He picks his shots really well. He comes forward. He can be aggressive. And he obviously hits hard enough to command respect. I had him winning that 98-91. It was only, like I said, the 10th round where there was any sort of problems for him. But I thought he looked good. He looked good. Onwards and upwards for him. And the cruiserweight division domestically shaping up.
No, it is. He's certainly, he's joined. We've been talking, obviously, Riatpour, Coley, Jack Massey, Billum Smith, Isaac Chamberlain. And for me, Jordan Thompson now has thrown his name in the hat, hasn't he, so to speak? He's on the fringes of it, don't get me wrong, but I'd love to see him in with a Jack Massey or even an Isaac Chamberlain. That fight would also make sense.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to need to improve the concentration. Eddie Hearn's really jumped on the bandwagon and beating the drum, saying how good he is and he's the future, which we know he's had his issues with Lawrence Okoli, and we're assuming we'll get some sort of announcement on that soon, to be fair. But if they're going to want Jordan Thompson to be their new cruiserweight, he's going to have to sharpen up probably more his behaviour in the ring in terms of the concentration and the mental side of it than the actual boxing game, in fairness to him. But still a good win. Now we're going to move on because I'm excited about this and I'm gutted I didn't get to do the preview because you did mention it. I am a massive fan of the Romford Bull, Johnny Fisher. He was back. He's had a few months out of a hand injury. Don't smirk, Ray. You will become a fan of the Romford Bull. I know it. You've got it in your locker, mate. And he won. He's extended his unbeaten record. Another stoppage win against, Michael Reisinger. Were you impressed with him? And I'm always impressed with him in anything he does. So
yeah, look, Johnny Fisher did what he had to do. He's got some raw bits about him. In my opinion, he is very, very raw, very, very raw. But there is a long way to go with him. But look, he did what he had to do. At least he's taking it to his opponents. He's getting his opponents out of there. There's going to be it's a long road ahead for Johnny Fisher.
What do you mean a long road ahead? He's one of the biggest ticket. In fact, right, you've said you're going off, and I've answered, David, but I'm not having laughing faces about the Romford Bull.
He's a big ticket seller. Yeah, I get that. But for me, I'm old school. I want to see my boxers being able to box and being able to fight first. Selling tickets comes later. But Johnny Fisher, my heart sinks with him because I kind of think, again, the thing is, Eddie Hearn did it with a local lad up here called Joe Laws. He just looked at the fact that the kid could sell tickets, and Eddie Hearn has dollar signs in his eyes. He's not looking at the ability, and I think that's what he sees in the likes of Johnny Fisher, Joe Laws when he has. And my worry is Johnny Fisher's in a hard fight, or he loses a fight that he's supposed to win. What does he do with Johnny Fisher then?
Well, there is that, to be fair. So I hear you. He's a ticket seller, and as you say, Eddie Hearn's got pound signs in his eyes. His family are quite big on social media. We've had our weekly, the weekly Joe Laws mention. But here's a name for you, right? Steve Robinson. We talked about it a little bit. We think we know what his level is. Now, I think Johnny Fisher, don't get me wrong, I'm not sat here saying he's going to become a world champion because
he would destroy Steve Robinson.
I think he would as well. But we're sat here saying, Johnny Fisher's, well, you're sat here saying Johnny Fisher's limited, shall we say. We've also said about Steve Robinson being limited, and we saw on the Wasserman card up with you in the Northeast that he's found his level, if we're honest. That's still a fight I'd want to see. It sells tickets. You know, Steve Robinson's got a bit of a profile, bit of name value about him. I realise there's obviously... oh. Well, I can tell you what then, Michael, for the Ron football, who do you want to see him in with next? Because I've got to be honest, I'm bored of seeing him fight European journeymen now. It's all he's fought so far, and you know he's had a fair few of them. I want to see him fight someone with a little bit of profile. So for me, let's see how really limited he is. Because if he doesn't do Steve Robinson in one round or something, I'll accept I'm wrong. To be honest,
I think he would. I think he would. I think he would batter Steve Robinson. I'll tell you what I want to see from him. A good fight from him would be the lad that's at front Warren stable. That Adelaide, I think that would be a good fight for him. Because they're both, I think they're both similar stages. I don't think he needs to go down the route that they used to go down the where they used to take on the likes of that Johnson from the States. I don't think they need it. I don't think they need to go down that route. There's some good fights domestically that they can have. I think he can work his way. I think he's 2 fights away from a potential fight with someone like a Nathan Gorman. But yeah,
I'll be honest. I think he's a little bit more than that. Nathan Gorman for me is a little bit underrated. So I think I'd want to see him have another 4 or 5 fights before Nathan Gorman, just because, you know, we saw him sort of fight the couple of heavyweights that Spain has to offer. And I can't remember the fella's name, but he got cut. It was a bit of a messy performance. Oh, it's really going to annoy me. I can't remember the guy's name. It went all the way. Anyway, it went to a decision. And I just think he needs to step up slowly. He needs a fight where there's a bit of pressure, which is where I'm thinking, you know, in terms of a profile, social media attention, the likes of a Steve Robinson, you know, Dave Allen's getting back in shape. You know, we know all about Dave Allen, but again, that's a fight. He needs a fight where there's attention and pressure on it. Because for me, if you chucked him in with Nathan Gorman, I think Nathan Gorman's been there and done it. And although Dubois sort of splattered him, he's got his own bigger fights. I just think I'd pick Nathan Gorman to win that one.
Right now, but I know you're seeing 4. I'm seeing 2. We'll go with 4, but I think that's a realistic goal for him to get to. But yeah, that's why I see Johnny Fisher at this time.
No, definitely. Michael, you agree with us, mate. So, I mean, again, it'd be interesting to see what's next. I think we'll see him active now he's recovered from his hand injury purely because of the ticket sales. Yeah, he needs to get the weight down. Obviously, he's just been up north. That card was obviously next gen in Sheffield. I think we'll soon see him back down in down south, get the tickets sold down there. We'll move on. Sandy Ryan, obviously, big rematch for her. Huge pressure. She's beaten Farias by unanimous decision. Now, she didn't have it all around well. I think it's obviously fair to say, Ray, did she? But for me, she's shown a lot of mental strength by going back into this rematch and taking it. She's talked a lot in the build-up about going to a bit of a dark place mentally, and she wasn't always in the right frame of mind and thought about just, forgetting boxing altogether. I'm glad she didn't, because since before she made a pro debut on this channel, since this channel started, we've been pushing her as, potentially a serious player in the future of women's boxing. How impressed with you were? How, what I'm saying?
Yeah. How impressed was I? Yeah, I thought this was a real difficult fight for her because of how the first fight went. Sandy Ryan was on a game, even walking to the ring, Josh, she looked a determined woman. She wasn't making any eye contact with anybody, any of the fans in attendance. She wasn't touching those with any of the fans. She walked in head down, but she was determined. It wasn't like a lack of confidence. It was like a steely belief. And she boxed to a T. She boxed to a game plan. She didn't stand and trade with Farias. She didn't engage with Farias. She boxed perfectly. This is what we know she can do, but I didn't know whether she would, from her weigh-ins, Sandy Ryan turned into somebody like to be wound up. She liked to push her, shove her opponents, kind of allowing people that were levels below her to get under her skin. But Sandy Ryan showed some composure. That's what I liked about her. She showed some composure. She boxed really, really well. She, I didn't think at times she ever looked at getting Farias out in there. But Farias is so underrated. Just look at the girls she's been in with. Like Pursoon, McCaskill, Breakhouse. She's been in with some really, really tough girls. So I always thought even the first fight was a bit too much too soon. But what Sandy Ryan showed is the capability to learn. If you put her head into the game, she can be anything she wants to be. So I've got to give her the same energy. I was saying it was a tough fight, real tough fight, and she shouldn't have taken it, but she shut me up. She proved me wrong. And that's what I want to see. It's onwards and upwards. I mean, the Chantel Cameron fight's a bit too early to call that one out. A trainer, Clifton McKenzie, was calling for Chantel Cameron. I don't know what you guys in the chat think. Josh, I don't know what your opinion is, but I think that's too early for Sandy.
No, far too early. I mean, it's tough because I get sort of sick of saying it on this channel, but I think there's just not the depth in women's boxing. So it's tough to actually match her and sort of get her ready for a Chantel Cameron fight. But Chantel Cameron's a huge talent, unified world champion. She's looking at undisputed, not thinking fight Sandy Ryan. Don't get me wrong, if Sandy Ryan can get into a mandatory position or win another 3 or 4 fights, which she's definitely got the talent to do, then we could be talking. But maybe this time next year. But I just think right now they're on different trajectories, sort of thing. I'd like to see Sandy Ryan actually have a little bit of an easier fight next time out, because she'll have been under a lot of stress and pressure to get that win back. So I'd like to see just have keep learning, have another camp, have another. I'm not saying put her in there with a tomato can, not at all. But I just, calm it down a little bit, get another win, a bit more experience, and then see where we are going into 2023. But she's definitely a talent. We'll move on to the main event. And again, weirdly, I agreed with every word you said in the preview, Ray. So I'm going to say we're both just geniuses at this point. But I think it's definitely a star is born for me in Sheffield on Saturday. I think, don't get me wrong, Samo Mason, I think he's probably an English title level fighter. I think, maybe even British, to be fair. But I think what we saw is Dalton Smith has got so much more to his game. The shot variety, just everything he does. He's such a classy operator. And, we've talked about his potential for a little while on here.
Would you say he's the best prospect in the UK, Josh?
For me, right now, yes, because he's delivering it. What is that, 12-0 now with 10 stoppage wins, I think, for Dalton Smith?
Yeah.
And like you said in the preview, he's answered every single question asked of him. Even bizarre referee calls when points have been taken and all the rest of it. He's overcome a lot. A very impressive win against Samo Mason. I'd like to see him back out, but with a bit of a step up. I suppose it would have to. He'll defend the British title just to tick that box of being a defending champion, so to speak. But I think, at light welterweight, super lightweight, whatever we want to call it, I think we're going to be seeing Dalton Smith in some absolute mega fights in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I'm struggling to add any more. In terms of breaking down the fight, it was almost like a perfect destruction. Samo Mason's no duck egg. He's no mug.
No.
And he systematically broke him down. That's what I like about him. He's patient. His counter punching's excellent. It really is. He's got great shot selection. He cuts off the ring well. But he can box a bit as well. That's what I like about him. He can actually box. I've also got to say as well, he doesn't look like a destructive puncher, but he hits hard enough. He definitely hits. I think what I'm trying to say is, as the opponents get better, I don't think the stoppages will be there. I don't think he's that type of puncher. But I definitely see him having success in this division right the way to getting to world level. There's something about Dalton Smith, and I've said it for a while. People weren't sure about him, but I'm a big fan of Dalton Smith. I just think there's even more levels in there. There's even more levels. It looked that way on Saturday night as well. It looked as though he hadn't got out of second gear, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, mate. And again, I think it's going to be actually tough to get him a fight that he's going to be up for, because obviously Samuel Mason's no mug, as we've said.
Yeah.
However, the British title, let's be honest, I think it's a box that anyone from Britain would want to tick. So that's your motivation for that fight. Now he's won it. I think the next fight is a potential, depending on who they put him in with, it could be a potential banana skin. And I genuinely think that, because everyone's talking about him. The social media interaction around Dalton Smith was sky high all across the weekend. So, everyone's thinking the same. And I just think the next matchup's critical for him. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it is. I think not just only is it critical for his development, but it'll tell us just how high they rate him. Are they just going to go for a quick sort of defense, or are they going to push on? It'll be interesting to see. There's some good names at the 140 division. It was interesting because although it's well known that I made it well known that when I'm watching these fights, I turn the commentary down. I did pay attention to what they were saying about the makeup of the 140 division, and they were rating him quite highly. The people had thrown names like O'Hara Davis in there. There was Sam Maxwell in there. There's quite a good list for people that you could put him in. I wouldn't put him in with some of those guys just yet, but he'll be more than ready. 12 months, 18 months time, he'll be more than ready for those guys, even the likes of Lewis Ritson, Jack Carroll. And I think he would more than hold his own.
No, definitely right. I think that's it. Should we wrap it up, Ray?
Yeah, definitely. Guys, thank you very much for being in the comments. We've loved having your comments on. Some of them have made us laugh. Some have made Josh cry. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for all your comments. Don't forget to like the channel. It really helps us out. And guys, we've got loads of content coming up for you in the coming weeks, so stay tuned.